Let's talk about Nigeria now, where the SEC has just made some announcement regarding the licensing of Chukwu in terms of its regulating the fintech. Congratulations, folks. But let's get this start first about the fintech incubation program, which the SEC is planning to unveil in the Nigerian market. The program, which is due to unveiling in the third quarter, will operate by admitting identified fintech business models and processes for a one-year period and carry on in two phases: initial assessment, regulatory incubation phase, which is the second. Now, let's get a further understanding of this latest move by the SEC. Johnson Chukwu, a licensed securities trader and CEO at Cowry Asset Management. A good evening to you, sir, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Bosin, for having me.
We appreciate your time. So let me go straight to business. Is this regulatory incubation for fintechs by the SEC such a welcome idea by everyone?
Well, I would say for the fintech operators, it might not be a welcome idea because they've been operating in a space where with minimal regulation. And as you know, any form of regulation will have a way of slowing down innovation. So for fintech operators, it might not be so welcome, but you have to balance the interest or the motive of SEC in trying to regulate the fintech industry and the need for the fintech industry operators to remain unhinged in their innovation. And as it stands today, SEC is trying to ensure, first, they do not stifle innovation. At the same time, we do not have instances where operators come into the market completely unregulated, completely unguided, and then abuse the trust of investors.
Well, so what do you think the SEC is trying to achieve?
I think the first thing they want to do is, the first period of their innovation scheme is to even understand the fintech industry, to understand their modus operandi, so that they be able to regulate them. As it stands today, because of the speed at which technology is moving, you may not fully understand how innovative or how creative the fintech operators are. And we all know that the fintech industry is an enabler and as well as a disruptor. So the key thing is that SEC is trying to ensure that their ability to disrupt is in form of creative innovation, and they do not disrupt the financial system or abuse, like I said earlier, the trust of investors by coming up with schemes that are Ponzi in nature and do not create value for the investors.
Okay, so here we have this news just coming through that this SEC has given a license, what you call a digital sub-broker serving multiple brokers, digital platform license to Chukwu investment platform. This is the first of its kind, making Chukwu the first recipient of this newly created license window by the SEC as part of the Commission's effort at fostering regulation within the environment. The licensing, according to the report, is designed to ensure the safety of the investing public while encouraging innovation. The SEC, and by extension the central bank, had been accused of stifling fintech innovation in Nigeria, but this is one approval for the first digital sub-broker in the Nigerian market history by the SEC.
Yes, and I'm quite happy with that because in the first place, it shows instead of stifling innovation in the fintech industry and the financial system, that SEC is willing to adopt the technologies that are currently driving human interactions. As it stands today, technology has made it possible for most people to have self-service without necessarily going through a physical broker to execute their trade. So it would actually be it would have amounted to playing the ostrich if the SEC does not recognize that today technology will entail that you don't need a broker to do your trade. And by licensing a firm to be able to carry out stockbroking transactions virtually, which is basically what most operators, most investors are asking for, that also shows that they're catching up with the trend. As you also know, Bosin, virtually in all instances, practice or innovation go ahead of regulation. It is the practice that regulators catch up to regulate. It is when new practice evolve that regulators will understand what's going on and try to regulate it to make sure that it operates within the sphere of a human enterprise, or it does not tend towards some illegal transactions or illegal activities. But there's no regulation that is created to regulate an open space. It is the practice that leads to regulation. And I'm happy that we are catching up with that. We need to catch up as a country with a trend in technological adoption. And if we do not, we'll be left behind. But eventually what happens is that, like I said, technology is an enabler and also a disruptor. Okay. If you do not catch up with trend in technology, you could be disrupted.
Okay, so at this particular point, would you say that the fintech industry is becoming over-regulated, yet the professionals in the fintech industry were busy designing platforms and softwares without really thinking about what regulators like the Central Bank, the SEC, and others would come up with? Is that where you find this a bit of unsettling between both parties?
Yeah, I said earlier that the operators in the fintech industry have been having a field day. It's an industry that is riding on innovation. And if you look at the speed at which creativity is evolving, at which new ideas are coming up, are being turned into practical tools for providing service and improving the living standard of citizens, or improving the ease of engaging in any form of activity. And you realize that it's almost impossible for the regulator to catch up with that trend in innovation. So what the regulator is trying to say is that if you come up with a solution that could apply to the capital market, they need to understand that solution. They need to be sure that solution does not breach the trust of investors, because that's the primary objective of SEC, to ensure that your investment is secured and that nobody comes to the market with an innovation that will lead to loss of capital, loss of investment. So that's the primary objective they want to protect. But that must be done in a way that will not stifle innovation, that will allow people who are innovative to think freely, create new solutions, and then possibly, if those solutions are applicable to the capital market, bring them for SEC to understand them and have them licensed.
Well, it looks like we have a curtain raiser as the SEC now licensed Chukwu with the first digital sub-broker in the Nigerian market. We say congratulations to all of you. Now, they say the more the merrier. But let's see how it all goes. Well, thank you for your time on the show this evening. Sir Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Cowry Asset Management.